Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday night, so you know what that means. This is the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast. We have the whole crew. Well, not exactly. We don't have exactly the whole crew because shout out to our brother Flobo. He is giving a keynote speech. Do y'all know this? He is giving a keynote
Yeah.
speech at his alma mater. So he is out, but we want to give a huge shout out to our guy Flobo. He will be back next Monday. There's so much to discuss in the realms of baseball, black baseball. But before we do that, we got to take care of our business. So we got to give a big shout out to our sponsors. That's right. Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, Number Game Scorecards, and Minority Prospects. Two of those, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds and Numbers Game Scorecards. Please make sure you use the access code Black Baseball Mixtape or BBM. It gives you a discount on the product, and it also helps keep this show and all the other things that we have on the platform powered. So shout out to our sponsors. If you want to sponsor, partner with the Black Baseball Mixtape, please send us a note, blackbaseballmixtape at gmail.com. On this episode is going to be super special. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I just went to spring training, West Palm Beach. I'm excited to talk about those. Look, those black gnats. We're going to talk about those gnats. We're going to talk about the Astros. I saw both New York teams over the weekend. There's just a lot to talk about, and just the ins and outs of spring training. So we're going to talk about that. Lawrence Butler has been the talk of baseball with his extension. They extended uh, Dave Roberts. They extended Aaron Boone. There's a lot going on. There's money going around, ladies and gentlemen. There's money going around. And one of the big things we're going to talk about on this episode is we are going to look at the National League and we're going to look at what Vegas thinks is going to happen in Major League Baseball. So those are the over-under team totals. We're going to discuss it all. We're going to discuss it all with our fantastic Monday night crew. So with no further ado, I've got to give a shout out all about April. Hey, how you feeling?
Hi, y'all. I am feeling good today. Happy to be off work, but I'm ready to talk some baseball.
That's right, because spring break for you, it's earlier. It's earlier in your part of the woods in Texas than it is in Virginia. So
Yeah.
we got a couple more weeks before spring break.
Yes, I'm enjoying it. I needed it.
Speaking of Texas, were you in the lab today? Butterman Kane, Malik, how we feeling?
We're feeling pretty fulfilled. I was actually in the store, so we just released our products in one of Houston's local lifestyle and bookstores called The List. It's a cafe, so check it out. And we've just been kind of recovering from all the events and just being in the lab last week, just making different skincare products. So I'm ready to talk about some baseball, though, because there's been a lot going on, like you just said. And I'm really ready to get into these predictions because Central is going to be really interesting. And I'm really
It is going to be really interesting. So we are going to go into that a little bit later, but that's going to be the majority of the program. If you are following live right now, and if you're following on YouTube, if you're following on Instagram, feel free to ask your question in the chat. We will try our best to answer your question in the chat, so make sure you do that. I just got back. I'm full disclosure. I'm running on fumes. I'm running on fumes because I had a spectacular weekend, a fantastic weekend. I went for the first time. This is a bucket list thing for me. I've never been to spring training before in my entire life. I made the decision this year. Grapefruit League. We're going to go to Florida. We're going to see some things. I bought the family. My wife was down. My 10-year-old son was down. I'll tell you what they did. They did not go. They didn't do exactly what I did. But they had a wonderful time as well. Shout out to the Washington Nationals organization and shout out to the Houston Astros organization because both of them were fantastic to me in the platform, the Black Baseball Mixtape. I specifically chose going down to Cacti Park in West Palm Beach because I noticed that both the Nats and the Astros share a facility. Basically, they split it in half. They've got tons of practice fields on each side. Then they have like the main ballpark. And the way that the schedule worked out just this last weekend, Friday night was the Mets coming in to play the Nationals. Saturday, the Nationals played the Cardinals early, and then the Astros took over and played a home game against the Yankees. And then Sunday, Sunday afternoon, the Astros played the Marlins, and then I was on a plane back to Virginia. So that's what happened. There's so much to talk about. Spring training is a vibe. If you've never been, spring training is a vibe that I really cannot describe. But I am here to tell you guys, I think, what happened to me. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. But the Nats are a vibe. Spring training's a vibe. I enjoyed the Astros very much. We did get one of our dream interviews. I got a dream interview that'll be on the podcast coming up this week with the only only black GM in Major League Baseball, Dana Brown. I didn't get him long. I'll tell you how that came about as well. But I did get him. I got Dana Brown for a couple of questions, a short interview that we'll post on the podcast. I want to tell everything, but I don't know how to start. So, April and Malik, do you have any questions about spring training and the vibe? Because I will tell everything. I just don't know how to start telling everything.
Well, I mean, I don't think you need to hide this one too much, but I want to know what Dana had to say. I was talking a little bit about Dana on Flobo's last podcast release with the Black Baseball Mixtape, and it's really interesting that he is the only black GM in Major League Baseball, and he is actually one of the most respected, scouts in the game. He's very cut and dry in a lot of interviews. So how was just that, like, just getting to know him and just like actually getting access to speak with him? Because, he's really busy.
So the Dana Brown thing was a surprise to me in regards to, I have actually had an outstanding invite for Dana Brown to be on the podcast for the last 2 years. He was a dream guest type person since he got the job, right? Mm-hmm. Since he got the job, I've been reaching out to the Astros comms department. Obviously, like I said, shout out to them. They're fantastic. He is a very busy man. And at the time, like, I was a nascent podcast with, like, you know what I mean? So it was a lot different, but we were still working things out. I will tell you, I did not go into Astros camp on Sunday morning thinking I was going to interview anyone. I think I'd thrown this out in the group chat. By Sunday, I had kind of picked up on the vibe of spring training, and there were so many things I did not know. And one of the things that I thought was way more effective than actually interviewing folks, even folks I'd met before, folks that had been on the podcast before, I spent a lot of time just having conversations with players, having conversations with coaches, all of it off the record. Then I could make my notes and I could, go back and tell people kind of what I heard. But the vibe really wasn't, let me put a microphone in your face, because I didn't see that happening up until Sunday. Mm-hmm. So I spent 3 days kind of just talking to folks, getting to know them, maybe introducing what the mixtape was to some of the coaches that didn't know. So most of the players, young black players, knew, but it was very interesting situation. Ultimately, I get to Sunday at Astros camp, and that was the first time, and it's probably because MLB Network was there, MLB Network Radio was there, and one of their goals was to get the interviews. So they were there to interview the manager, to interview Dana, to interview Jose Altuve, to interview these guys. So it looked a little bit more normal, or what you would look as a press scrum on Sunday in Astros camp. And so even though I didn't go in thinking I was going to get any audio for the whole weekend by this time, I was like, you know what? Let me pull it out. Let me pause. Let me. Sorry, guys. I'm still. I mean,
he's coming down from spring training, y'all.
Let me get out my audio equipment. Let me get out my audio equipment, because I may never have this opportunity again. I've been asking for 2 years, and I've never obviously been in a position to even get an interview. So the interesting thing was with Dana Brown, I talked to him probably for like 5 minutes just off the record before I wanted to get the audio. And talking to him was fantastic. Talking to him was fantastic. He's a smart guy. He knows his history. He knows his unique position. He doesn't shy away from any of that. And it was so great talking to him off the record. Is that when I was like, I've got to get this on audio. I have to. So when I came back, now and again, think about this. You've already talked to a guy, introduced yourself. You talked to him for 6 or 7 minutes already, had a great conversation. And then he's like, let me put a microphone in your face. The interview was a lot shorter because he had things to do. He's a busy guy. He's at spring training. He's watching camp. But that was fantastic. And I would say the most impressive thing in the short interaction that I had with him was that I think a lot of people in his position would be in that position, understand it, but not lead, not lead with it. And he doesn't lead with it, but this was the Black Baseball Mixtape. So I wanted to ask him about what it was like in his unique position, being the only black GM, being the 7th in the history of baseball. Like, how does he do that? And how does he put that in perspective? And he's a lifer. He came out of scouting, worked a long time with the Braves. And the interesting thing about the way he explained it to me was he didn't shy away from it. Again, in most settings, he doesn't lead with his journey, but he doesn't shy away from his journey. So he's definitely a real one. The conversation, I'm going to post a clip probably tomorrow after we get through this podcast. And it was exciting. I wanted to get him to dig deeper, even further into kind of understanding his role, stuff he learned from Hank Aaron, stuff he working with Dusty Baker, but we just didn't have the time to get to it. But I never got the sense that he didn't want to talk about it, which is good. I got the sense that he was busy, and he was, and he's focused on the season, which he is. But I never got the sense that he wanted to shy away from his journey. And I asked him what advice he would give to young folks that want to be GMs, young black folks that want to be GMs. And he said they've got some of the Astros system down. And one of them's an assistant GM, African-American black guy. And so it was just exciting to hear him. So that part was different because, again, that was more of a scrum that really was the only time I'd seen it all in spring training. The rest of spring training was a lot of off-the-record conversations and learning about that vibe. But, yeah, that was the Dana Brown part. And that podcast will be that interview will be coming up. And I'm going to probably pair it with a conversation I had that was a little bit longer with Eduardo Perez from MLB Network, ESPN. Eduardo was fantastic. I knew that he was a nice guy from, encountering him in passing a couple years ago in Seattle, but he really loves the game of baseball, is really grateful to it. He's another lifer. Obviously, his father is Tony Perez for the Cincinnati Reds. He played a little bit, but he what he does on the media side and the joy he spends, and the fact that he knows, he's like, representation matters. There's not a lot of folks that look like Eduardo Perez on ESPN and MLB Network, and he really does a great job with it. So those two will probably be together. It'll be a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, definitely release that. We're waiting for that conversation.
Yeah, it'll be short, but it'll be this week. But I enjoyed that part of it. And again, the whole vibe. Like, we got to talk about the Black Nats.
The Black Nats, please. We got to talk about
please talk about the Black Nats.
The prospects.
And because the Nats are even blacker than we.
No, they're black as hell. Even in the office, the prospects. If you go to their top 30 prospects,
exactly. The Nats are so black that they have diversity in blackness on their team. And that is, I think that two things that we talk about, what is kind of really good signs when you talk about diversity on a team, is one, if you have average, nobody's bad, it's Major League Baseball. But if you have average black baseball players on your team, that's phenomenal. Like, the black guy on the team doesn't have to be like the all-world superstar. But also, if you have diversity in your blackness in the locker room and in the clubhouse, and the Nats have it all. They have everyone from D1, D1 players that got drafted to guys that are drafted out of high school, the guys that might have grown up in the inner city, the guys that play travel ball in the suburbs. And I won't tell you who the player was, but I was talking to Delano DeShields, who's the manager of Double A Harrisonburg, but they're all there at spring training. That's the other thing. Everybody's there at spring training.
Okay.
So Delano DeShields is at spring training, and he's talking about black players on the team, and he was like, one kid was so clean cut. He was like, he got to get some just dirt on his uniform. He's got to get some dog in him. And but just hearing that was so refreshing. It was so refreshing being around that team. And the interesting thing, or I think a really favorable thing about the Nationals, is that most of them understood that the Nationals have the most black American born players in camp than any other major league team.
That's good.
And most of the players knew that. They didn't know that, like they didn't know it as a stat like I knew it, but they looked around and they were like, look around. We know this is different. We get it. We're excited about it. And that was fantastic to hear. Some of the coaches, the comms team, they know it. Like they know that they have something that's unique, but it's like I think they're still all trying to figure out like what to do with it in many ways, as far as a messaging standpoint. And it'll, in DC things will change.
Yes.
If they win. I think I was talking to Josiah Gray, and Josiah Gray's on the injured list. He's on the 60-day injured list now, and he told me he's a little ways away from really coming back. He's working out and doing things. Everything's going well, but even if all things go well, he's got a ways to go before he's back on the field. And he was saying everything changes if they start winning.
Yes.
In DC with that team. And he was like, and they've got potential. We'll talk about the National League. We'll talk about the National League East. They've got potential, but if they start winning, the crowd looks different. The energy looks different. Look what happened to the Commanders. I
was about to say that.
Yeah, they got the right quarterback now, and it reinvented Chocolate City in many ways for Commanders fans. If these guys with James Wood and C.J. Abrams and these guys,
Gray.
right, and these guys start winning, and these get making the roster, and they're actually showing their personalities, sky's the limit for what it could mean for black baseball.
Yeah, and I think we also have to remember too, like DC has a very large black population, and they're always looking for activities and things to be able to do, including baseball. So when I watched how excited people were for the Commanders, like they were ready to go to the games. They were ready to wear the gear to be able to support Jaden Daniels, and they just re-signed him, Bobby Wagner, and a lot of the players that are on the team. So it's only a matter of time. Once they start winning, people are going to show up because young, black, educated people, especially in their area, all black people in that area, they're always looking for something to cheer each other on about.
Absolutely.
And it's just a moment waiting to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, so I was excited. Nats Camp was fantastic. Nats Camp was fantastic. And one of the things I did do, and you've seen some of it already, I was able to take the Polaroid around. I took the Polaroid around. I took the film camera around. But the Polaroids that we have of the Nats are fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'll be able to share some of them as the days go by. Spring training definitely it's a vibe. It definitely takes you a second to understand what's happening. So, for example, Friday was almost a complete missed day for me, Friday night, the Mets game, because I'm thinking it's more like a regular season game. Their Mets are taking batting practice up until 10 minutes before the game starts on the field. And I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, are the Nats? No Nats to be found. Nowhere. This is 10 minutes before the game. And I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, are the Nats going to, are they going to eventually take batting practice or something? Because I'm out on the field. I didn't know. I had to learn. But I didn't know that basically spring training from like 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. for the full day is like extensive practice. It's practice, it's workouts, it's cage work, it's defensive drills, it's bullpens. All of this stuff is happening at the same time. And think about it. You're dressing, you got 40 men on the active roster. You've got non-invite rostyees. You've got people rehabbing. There's probably about, I don't know, double that. 65, 70, 80 folks milling around before the minor league guys get there. The minor league guys got there the weekend I was there as well. So basically, they're doing all of this working out. And then about 18 of them, 20 of them, position players especially, put their uniforms on and go to the field at like game time, right? But all the work is being done in the cages in the back in the workout. And a lot of folks, if you know you're not playing that day, you're still in the back while the game's going on. So it's awesome. It's like this thing where I didn't even know the back existed Friday night. I had to get to Saturday to really understand, like, oh, this is where all the action is. Even maybe while the game is going on. This is where, like, the action is in the spot to be at. Now, and of course, you want to go to the game and see who produces and production-wise. But the story of spring training is really that, like, who's putting in the work, who's showing out. You do have to produce. Somebody told me like the games are like an afterthought. The games aren't an afterthought because you got to put it on wax. You got to put it on tape. And so when I was there Friday night, CJ Abrams hit an Oppo home run. James Wood hit an Oppo home run. Nasim Nunez hit the walk-off. He walked off the game against the Mets. And that type of production, Nunez is in a position where he's fighting for a roster spot, fighting for his life for a big league roster spot, right? And he might get it. He's really performing well. And so it's just fantastic. I loved every aspect of spring training. I will say the last thing I'll say before we really move on is that the crowds are lighter than I thought, with one major exception. The Yankees.
Of course.
So the crowds are lighter than I thought all throughout the weekend, except for Saturday night, 6:00 game on a Saturday night. The Yankees came to town to play the Astros.
They traveled.
And it was sold out, like sitting room only, and it felt like a game in the Bronx. It really did. And that was awesome. It was awesome to see. I was texting my buddy. I almost saw 2 fights before the first inning started.
Wow.
That's how the Yankees were deep. The Yankee fans were deep.
Simmer down, fellas.
But the crowd, but the crowds were very, very manageable. Very, very manageable.
Now, I will say, I wonder, because whenever I look at the crowds in Arizona, they do look a little different. And I wonder if that's because the fields are a little bit closer.
Probably.
So comparing and contrasting next year, I'm interested to know exactly what that will look like. I'm definitely not surprised about Yankee fans showing up because
Florida, it's Yankee fans. They're everywhere. They were deep. They were deep. They were deep, and it was fun to see because again, I'm taking it all in. I want the experience, but it was definitely deep.
That's good.
That was fun. Yeah,
spring training was a vibe. I highly recommend folks go. Like I said, I can't compare it to Arizona and the Cactus League.
Right.
I've been told that the Cactus League is a little bit more fan friendly in regards to locations and being able to get to places. Florida is spread out. You're going, an hour here, 2 hours here to make spring training games. But if you get Cacti Park is fantastic. If you get a chance to see, the Nationals and the Astros and those guys working out, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And we'll talk about players as we move down the line moving forward. But I've developed some new favorite players that I really, really like. They may not be in the majors this year, but we know, Malik, we talk about Cam Smith all the time. Cam Smith for the Astros, number 1 prospect. It might I don't know where he's going to break. I've got it on good authority that it's probably going to be AA, but he's a grown man. He's a grown man, and I think he may finish the year with the club. He might do the AA start and jump right to the majors because he's that good.
Yeah, because there's not really what I've been reading is that in AA, that's when you have a lot of the stuff guys, the guys who throw 100. And then when you get up to AAA, then you have some of the guys who kind of throw a lot more breaking balls, some veterans. I think that also him playing in the PCL wouldn't really be it would kind of not be that big of a difference than moving up to the major leagues because the offensive numbers in AAA for his league are kind of inflated. And so they might as well just move him up. And then, Dana Brown, I think, said in another interview that he's not afraid of, moving guys quickly. There's also an incentive if they are to call him up with, the PPI rule, which pretty much incentivizes teams to call up rookies and so that they can accrue service time. And then eventually they can possibly win the Rookie of the Year. And then they can potentially get another draft pick from that. So the Astros, they might need some more, firepower in their farm.
I would not be afraid at all from what I saw up close, size-wise, maturity-wise, like all the physical ability. I don't know what people are looking for mentally, and he seems like a great kid, but all the tools,
yoga. I think he does yoga and he meditates, according to an interview with Chandler.
All the things physically, he's there. Like, so he was at Florida State for 2 years, and I was wondering a little bit about that, but I found out that you're draft eligible after either your junior year of college or if you turn 21. He turned 21, so he's only 22 years old now, and I believe, but he was draft eligible after 2 years of Florida State, and he's got all the tools. I'm a big Cam Smith guy. I am quickly becoming a George Lombard Jr. guy. I saw him play Saturday night. He is super young. I think he's only 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
He's really young.
He's physically, he's got. I was sitting next to Yankee fans who said, literally, everyone in the organization is on the table except for George Lombard Jr.
Really? You mean like so Spencer Jones?
They were ready to trade Volpe right now. The Yankee fans, They were ready to trade Dominguez. They were ready to trade Spencer Jones. Wow. They were not ready to trade Lombard. Lombard was the guy. They liked Ben Rice a lot too, and I think Ben Rice might be the starting DH this year. But they were like, everyone can get it except George Lombard. Wow. They love him, and they are definitely, Yankee fans are definitely afraid of Dominguez's defense in left field.
Oh,
definitely afraid of his left field defense.
It's been a little suspect. I guess it's because of, it is, apparently it's a difference when you move from center to left, the ball kind of comes off a little bit differently. And left field in Yankee Stadium is pretty difficult from what I've heard. Sometimes teams put their best defensive outfielder in left field in Yankee Stadium.
I think they're worried about Dominguez defensively everywhere. Honestly.
Everywhere.
They just seem like Dominguez in defense is not. He looked good. I saw him on Saturday. I think he looked good. Spencer Jones is a giant. He looks the part. But I'm telling you, they were like, George Lombard Jr. is the future for sure. And it was great to see him up close, see Cam Smith up close. Obviously, James Wood, I saw up close. It looks like, he's a monster as well. In regards to the young guys, it's a lot of young talent out there. So, speaking of young talent, let's and I don't think this is look, I'm not speaking out of school here. I just want to give a huge shout out and just a congratulations. I'm looking at my text messages as we're doing this podcast. I was fortunate enough. I texted Lawrence Butler earlier during the day. He just hit me back and was obviously just wishing him congratulations, and he just said, a nice thing on the way back. But that seems to be the talk, especially of this week, in regards to baseball and especially black baseball. Lawrence Butler signing the extension. Malik, do you have the numbers in front of you? I'm going to pull them right up. April, you have them?
Yeah, 7 years, $65.5 million.
So generational, life-changing money. 7 years. How much? One more time.
$65.5 million.
And that's the guarantee, right?
$65 million for Lawrence Butler. Obviously, we can't be more thrilled. We're big fans of Lawrence Butler.
Yes.
So glad the Oakland Athletics. Not the the Athletics, not the Oakland Athletics. But I'm so glad I did it. I got to figure out a fine for this season. So glad the Athletics are really investing in their program. They're really investing in their program.
Now, yes.
What does this mean? April, I'm going to start with you. What does this mean just when you look at the landscape of baseball, especially when we're talking about young black players, we know Michael Harris is locked up now. We know Hunter Green is locked up now. Lawrence Butler off of, let's just be frank, off of a powerful 2 months, 3 months. Now and again, Law had been doing things I think throughout the year, the throughout his time with the Athletics that gave them confidence, but he exploded at
Yes.
the end of last season, and that really turned heads and said, "Hey, look, we got to lock this guy up long term," and they did. So, April, what do you think the Lawrence Butler extension just means in general, and what did you make of it?
So I went back after you mentioned Hunter and Mike, and I also saw that Ke'Bryan Hayes also was signed as well. So I'm seeing like a lot of the young guys are signing for a good length of time. I think it's headed in the right direction to be able to know that teams see value within these players, and they've decided that they want these players to represent them for a long bit of time, especially with these guaranteed contracts. And I'm not gonna lie, like I was smiling hard whenever I saw that he signed this contract, because it's generational, but it's also a dream come true for a lot of these players. They've worked hard for these moments, and it's good to be able to see that these teams are honoring players with not just the commitment, but also the pay to be able to match what they're getting. So, and he's so young. So it's only like he's only going to grow from where he is. But to know that even with us at the HBCU Classic, there were players who were mentioning him and admiring his work and his ethic and all of these things. I'm just excited that we have a player that can exemplify what it means to work hard, to be committed to exactly who he is and what he wants to be without changing any of that, and the organization honoring it as well. And that is something like, especially with the A's and the changes that they're making, they are showing us, look, we're investing. I don't know where we're going yet, but we're investing in you in the meantime as we figure this stuff out. And I think having his face as a part of this movement will be beneficial for them as well.
Malik, what do you make of it?
First, I want to shout out to Young Dolph. Get paid, young African American. Hey,
yes.
Shout out to Law. I'm just looking at Law's numbers, and there was a swing change that he made in the middle of the season. We remember that he was sent down in April. Thank you for mentioning all the hard work that he did. He had to change his swing in the middle of the season, which is really risky when you get dropped down to the minor leagues. It can keep you down there or it can bring you back up. And I actually got the pleasure of seeing Lawrence Butler with another friend of the Black Baseball Mixtape. Shout out to Khalif Stevenson in Oakland. Yep. We went out to a Ballers game. We went out to an Oakland A's game against the Mariners, and he went off. It was around September, and they say that he was trending down a little bit. He was still hitting at an above average clip, but he hit like a double that night. You can just hear the sound of the bat. Mm-hmm. And I think that the A's saw that the hard work that he was doing really matches, like you said, April, their identity as a team. And so despite what John Fisher has been doing, which is kind of a distraction, the team as an organization, the leadership seems to pick out players who they feel fit the A's mold. You got Brent Rooker, who really was a prospect who kind of got DFA'd, sent down, cut, and now he's the Oakland A's guy. You got Law, who was a first baseman. Now he's an athletic outfielder. And so I'm really happy for him, and he definitely deserved it. You can just check his numbers, and this is a guy who was one of the best outfielders in the league last year.
Absolutely, man. And I'm starting to think, and just in my mind, just a really like a player that is really connected to youth, connected to the culture, connected to excitement around the game. So I'm looking around the game and I'm trying to figure out who's next, right? Who could possibly be next? Because you're right, April and Malik, both. You're right. I didn't even think of Ke'Bryan Hayes, but there's a pattern of identifying these guys and giving them the extensions now, which ultimately, again, who knows what's going to happen 4, 5, 6 years from now. it may be considered a very club-friendly deal at the end, depending on how you're producing. I just remember when Harris locked up for Atlanta, I think that was 7 years after his Rookie of the Year season. This is fantastic, I think, for everyone involved because you're locking up your financial future. Again, I cannot overstate this enough. We're talking about generational, life-changing money, right? This changes life-changing money for the future of whatever, right? And then you're talking about guys that don't have to worry about arbitration. They don't have to worry about, they get a sense of one of the things that I think is so hard about baseball that a lot of people don't put in perspective is the fact that if you're constantly looking over your shoulder, it's difficult to be your best self. If you're thinking you're going to get taken out of the lineup, if you're thinking you're going to get sent down, and I'm not saying these things don't happen. These things still will happen if you're not producing per se, but the investment that the club is making in you now should give you a lot of security to feel like you are going to be your best self.
And I remember saying that they locked him up early because let me tell you something. This is a nice contract, but you wait a year or so, you're gonna have to come up off that money a little bit more. So they knew exactly. They made the best decision for everybody at the right moment. But I just expect him to supersede what we are seeing from him already. And by the way, I love his nickname Law. I love that. Like I could just see the items, my cricket getting to work, all that.
And he's let's just be frank, he's a marketable guy.
Yes.
If you look at the Athletics Instagram page now, it is Lawrence Butler top to bottom. Like they covered a lot of money, but they're featuring. Lawrence is at hockey game. Law's at hockey games.
Yeah,
he's at charity events. He could be
the
face of the franchise, for lack of a better term, for a long time.
A's have like one of the best jerseys in the game too. Can you imagine the amount of people who are gonna be walking around with that jersey? Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's like reminding me of the fanfare that I had when Chris Davis was playing for the A's. They had this guy who was just a hard worker, hit home runs. I think Lawrence is going to be the face. And like you were saying, Cheats, to keep up with other players, you're going to have to invest in a lot of things. Like maybe you have to go to Driveline like Mookie Betts did. Yeah. You got to invest in better trainers, better diet. You got to get a chef, to be the best baseball player you can be. And so it's almost like signing to a label, They invest in you and you invest in your craft. And so I think he's going to be the best and he's going to go off this year. I just know it.
I'm excited. Well, look, there's still plenty of things we can cover, but we have a job to do on this podcast, this episode. And we are going to talk National League. We're going to talk National League. We're going to talk over-under numbers compared to what Vegas is predicting for 2025, where these guys finished last year, and do we think Vegas has it right or do we think Vegas has it wrong? I'm going to start with our favorite division to talk about, the National League West, just for April. April is here, so we're going to start with the National League West. We're going to start with the defending world champions. Before we get into all of that, if you are live with us on the chat, we're going to go over Major League Baseball totals that Vegas has for wins and losses. Feel free to chime in the chat. If you think that we are crazy, if you think Vegas is crazy, let us know what you think predicting-wise. This is not our Fame prediction show. That will come before opening day. I want to be clear. This is not the Fame prediction show, but we're doing over-under. Before we really get into it, one more time, I got to give a shout-out to our sponsors. Shout-out Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance. By the way, the Players Alliance has a brand new YouTube video up right now that is featuring your boy co-hosting a conversation hosted by Curtis Granderson. It was a fantastic conversation that we recorded in the Bahamas. Off the field, on the record, off the field. It's fantastic. CC Sabathia is in it. D. Gordon is in it. Richie Palacios is in it. AJ Andrews is in it. Make sure you check out this conversation on the Players Alliance YouTube. It is fantastic. So shout out to our sponsors, the Players Alliance. Shout out Stilo. Shout out Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, Numbers Game Scorecards, and Minority Prospects, who are also all over the place. Minority Prospects is all over. Make sure you check them out as well. Let's get into it. So the defending world champions, according to Vegas, are the odds-on favorites this year to win the World Series again. They have got them slated at 103.5 wins. So 103.5 wins. Just to recap, the Los Angeles Dodgers last year won the World Series with a record of 98-64. 98-64. So Vegas is predicting this iteration, the 2025 Dodgers, will be better day in and day out by just a few games than last season. April, you are our Dodger expert, Dodger homer. Do you think the Dodgers will be better this year than they were last year? And do you think the Dodgers get over 100 wins?
Yes. I absolutely think that we get over 100 wins again. I mean, I don't think that we're too far off with the 98. But I do see us at the very least, I had 102. So I guess I'm not too far off from Vegas. But yeah, I do think that we will make it over 100. I do think that we've added some really good arms to the team. I also think that our infield and our outfield, we have both prospects and players who can be maneuvered. And the good thing about the Dodgers is that we have players who can play in multiple positions. So you think of Kike Hernandez as the only utility player, but no, you can move Max Muncy around. You can move Chris Taylor and some of these other players around. So I think that we have a team that can go the extra mile again, which is what we need.
Let me just say for the record before Malik, you jump in here, there is no team in 2024 that went over 100 wins.
Yep.
No team went over 100 wins.
Yep.
Now, in 2023, remember this, the Orioles, the Braves, the Dodgers all went over 100 wins. So last year, no team went over 100 wins. The year before that, 2023, 3 teams went over 100 wins. And were the Mets 100 wins too? No. Okay.
No.
But so there's 103.5 is the number, Malik, for the Dodgers. What do you say?
I'm going to say no, and I'm actually going to say that they're not going to get to 100 wins, maybe 99, but not 100. And the reason why is because for me, Shohei has to pitch. Shohei has to throw a pitch. And then the reason why I don't think he's really ready to pitch at the first half of the season is because they've actually, slowed down his regimen on the mound. And so they're going to let him focus on hitting, which is great. But I feel like to get over that 100, 103 mark, I think Shohei has to either close some games. He might have to start a few games because as deep as that pitching rotation is, I just feel like the National League, despite, the things we said about spending and free agency, compared to the American League, the National League got a little bit better. And so Shohei has to pitch for me to get to 103.
He's not going to pitch until maybe May. That's when he might be pitching.
Before we go any further, April, are we keeping a tracker? I think. Do you have your ledger around? We gotta make sure. Thank you. We gotta make sure. We gotta make sure that we're tracking this over under. Not just the win total. I don't know, but over under. We gotta track it.
I'm taking under.
104 wins is a huge number. It is a huge number. I am gonna go under. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to go under. One, it's a huge number. Baseball is a very long season. And like I said, in 2023, 3 teams did do it. But the Dodgers in 2023, which was a good team, maybe not as good as this year on paper, but they just got to it. They were just at 100. They were just at 100. This is 103.5. Everything has to go right. But this is the key why I'm going to say they're going to go under. They're going to get every team's best shot.
Yes.
Every team's going to be worked up to play the Dodgers, right? They're the world. They're the Avengers. They're the world beaters. Every team's going to want to beat them. They're not going to want to get swept by them. The Dodgers are going to have to be on every night, which they are very good, but they're not going to sneak up on. Not saying they snuck up on people in the past. Everybody knows they're good, but this is a whole new. It's really hard to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go under because I just think they're gonna get everybody's best shot, and they're gonna get games where a team that's horrible is just going to be so amped up to play the Dodgers in a series that they might steal a game or two. So I'm going. That's my logic. I'm going under with the Dodgers at such a high number at 103.
Yeah, I
All
have
right.
102 though, so I guess we're all at under right now. And to your point, Mookie Betts said that.
I thought you said
He said
over. Did you go over April? I thought April went over.
Oh, I have 102, so I guess I said wrong. I was at 102. My bad.
Okay,
Y'all.
so we're gonna do over or under.
So
Okay.
everybody's going under the Vegas
Everybody's
number for the
under.
Dodgers.
Okay, everybody's under. That's a lot. That's a lot of wins to get.
That's a lot of wins.
And Mookie Betts said this last year. He said everybody brings their best when it's time to play the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So I definitely I can see that, and we'll go there. Yeah.
Let's look at the Padres next. The Padres number is 85.5. That means the Padres have to get 86 wins to go over. The Padres were at 93 wins last season.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, do you think the Padres are, I guess, significantly worse day in and day out than they were last year? Because, again, this number is 85. That means you got to get 86 wins to go over that. And they won 93 games last year. So what are we looking at in San Diego? Do you think they're going to go over that number of 85.5? Malik, what say you?
Okay, they're going to go over that number. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of their team is still pretty much together. Their core players like Fernando Tatis, Machado, they still have the potential of a Xander Bogaerts comeback in the sort. So I think that they're going to go over that win total just because I feel like that's kind of selling them low and they can keep up with some of the teams in their division. So I'm going to go over. And they got to beat up on the Rockies a little bit, during the season. So a few more wins, 85.
And a Giant.
I'm shocked at this number. So I think the number is shocking. I think it's low too. I'm gonna go over because I think it's low too. I think the Padres are gonna be a good team. They lost the left fielder to the Braves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Harrison Profar.
Yeah, and Tanner Scott.
Pitching.
Yeah, Tanner Scott, I believe he went to the Dodgers.
He's going to the Dodgers.
He went up the street.
I still think, again, you talked about Tatis. You talked about Jackson Murals coming off the Rookie of the Year campaign.
They also lost Ha-Seong Kim.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm assuming they think they overachieved last year. Is that what I'm gonna go.
I think they played up to what they were.
I'm gonna go over. April, you're shaking your head. So we've got two overs. I think April's gonna change the vibe here. What do you think?
I actually had flipped the Diamondbacks and Padres for this season. Last year, I told y'all the Padres were going to be the it team behind the Dodgers. I think this year it's going to be the Diamondbacks. I had them flipped, and I have the Diamondbacks with a better record, maybe 90, 92, and I have the Padres about where Vegas has them, maybe 82, 84.
You're perfect. Mark it down, April, and you led us right into the next one. The Diamondbacks are listed better than the Padres. The Diamondbacks are listed at 86.5.
Yep.
86.5 wins Vegas has for the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks coming off a World Series appearance in 2023. They only got 89 wins. They were 89 wins. They finished the regular season 9 games back. Now and again, a little bit deceptive because in 2023, again, that aforementioned World Series year, the Dodgers only won 84 games and were 16 games back in the division, and they wound up going to the World Series. So, Diamondbacks are been hovering in that high 80 zone for 2 years in a row. 1 year they got lucky, and they lucky, say what you will. They ran the table. Maybe it's not luck, but they ran the table in the playoffs. Gets to the World Series. This year, What say you, April? Where were you on the Diamondbacks? You think they're going to be pretty good? Do you think
Yeah,
they're going to be better than 86.5 wins?
I think they can make it to 90. I think that they are a well managed team. I think that they have used their prospects well. I think that they've improved their pitching.
Corbin
Um,
Burns is a stud.
yes, so I think that they about to give us some issues. I'm not looking forward to playing Arizona at all. But like I told y'all in the last session, I believe what the Padres were last year, they're going to be giving teams fits of that this year. And there was one more thing I wanted to say about the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks and the Padres, if I'm not mistaken, they play again the last series of the season. So they did that last year, and we know that they were at the end mark. It's going to happen again.
Malik, what do you think about the Diamondbacks?
I believe that the Diamondbacks will not only go over that, but I think it's going to be a similar situation to what we saw in 2015 with the NL Central when we had the Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Cubs were almost like over 95 wins. I have high hopes for the Diamondbacks this year.
Right.
And the reason why is because their offense was like the top 5 in the league. Best base running, best like average power. Ketel Marte being the second best. I mean, actually the best second baseman in baseball. So I think that the Diamondbacks are like what April said, are going to make the Dodgers sweat a little bit. And I think they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna overtake the West, but I think they're gonna be maybe even the second best team in the NL, even to match even better than the Mets or even more wins than the Phillies, just based on how they performed last year with their offense. And now they have Corbin Burns. Zach Gallen's going to try to, ball out in this last year. So I have high hopes for them. So I'm going to sell at least over 95 for them.
The number is 86.5. So you're thinking over.
I'm thinking like over that, like 10 more wins.
I'm thinking over 2. But I'm thinking over because, again, we just talked about this. So think about it. We just said Padres. I just said Padres over. We all think that Diamondbacks are over. Like I said, I think Corbin Burns is stud. I think Jordan Montgomery's still there as well.
Yes.
Talked about Corbin Carroll and those guys, Marte. I think they're going to be very good. I think people are going to, the West is going to be tough. But I think something's going to have to give. And when I say something's going to have to give, I think the Dodgers, like I said, we picked under for them. So I'm thinking over Padres, over for Diamondbacks. And that leads us to where the rubber meets the road when we talk about the last 2 teams in the division. The San Francisco Giants, who I've watched closely because of their connection in Richmond to the Flying Squirrels. The San Francisco Giants are listed at, what's this Giants number? 80.5 wins. The Giants had 80 wins last year, so Vegas thinks they're going to be exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go under. I'm going under on the Giants. I know, like I said, I believe in some of the players they have there. I do think they have some, nice ball players, but I think this division is really tough, and I think something's going to have to give. And now we're at the giving stage. I think the giving stage is the Giants even bringing in Snell, bringing in some of the pitchers that they bought in. I think it's going to be a difficult season offensively. I think it's going to be a difficult season defensively, and I'm going under for the Giants. What say you, April?
Under. And I was appalled reading a report today. Blake Snell said that he texted Bob Melvin about his future and never got a response. Thought he was going back to the Giants and never heard back from them. And I'm like, do y'all want to win or what? Apparently not. So automatic under for that. I don't think that they're really, they picked up the shortstop, but I don't see them performing better than the Dodgers, Padres, or the Diamondbacks. I just don't see that happening. So
what say you, Malik?
Okay, I'm gonna take over, and probably because
over the 80. Over the 80.
I'm taking over the 80. I'm taking probably even like mid 80s. And it's because I have a bias. That is really the time when I don't know, I love Bay Area baseball, y'all. Like, I feel like they got some good vibes in San Francisco. Jung Ho Lee, I know a lot of people don't
love
really
him.
know how. Yeah, I really I really like his play. He hits the ball really hard. And he doesn't look like it, but I think he has a lot more power than what he's showing. Their team, they got Matt Chapman, Willie Adames is on that team.
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to be that bad. Honestly, I think they can play a little bit. Lamont Wade Jr., another black baseball player who I think has some of the base walk to strikeout numbers that I've seen out of a player at that position. So I got to say they're going to get over 80 wins in my book. And I really like Patrick Bailey as a catcher as well.
I don't think too. I don't think that Bob Melvin, managing wise, I know people are going to probably disagree with me for saying that, but I feel like the other managers are more player managers. When we talk about Schilt and the Diamondbacks manager, and of course Dave Roberts, I feel like they are more players managers who encourage their players to want to play for them. I'm not saying that ain't gonna happen on the Giants, but I mean they did go under after that, so we'll see. But
things did change after the new coach.
I'll be interested to see what we get out of Tyler Fitzgerald. I like Tyler Fitzgerald a whole lot. I think Tyler Fitzgerald is extremely talented. Another black player that you didn't mention that's on the Giants roster is Grant McCray in center field. Young guy, a lot of potential there. So I mean, these are guys that I follow obviously in Richmond. I really like. I just don't know if they're going to get over 80 wins this year. Just don't know it. And I don't again, something has to give in these divisions. And speaking of another area where we could talk about a lot of giving in the NL West, the Colorado Rockies. Let's finish out this division. The Rockies are listed at, hold on, let me find it. They're listed at 58.5 wins. The Rockies got 61 wins last year. So they went over that. They were obviously the last in the division. They were, a lot of games. They were last in the division. They were 37 games back in the division. Obviously a really good division. And 2023, I do want to let you guys know, the Rockies won 59 games. They lost 103 games. They were 41 games back in the division. So Vegas, a little bit more optimism with the Rockies at 58.5. That's better than, well, I mean, I guess not optimism. They were 61 wins. They've gone down to 58.5. We don't have to waste a lot of time on this, guys. Do we think the Rockies are going to go over or under 58.5? Do we think the Rockies get to 59 wins?
Over.
Over for Malik.
Over for me. Rocktober, baby. I'm gonna believe in those rocks, and I'm gonna find. I have a goal to go to a Rocks game and find as many black Colorado Rockies fans as I can find, because I feel like
Flobo's on a mission to find. I think he found a black Rockies fan.
He did. Yeah, I think it was a woman.
I got in the booth.
Yeah, and I think Herman Marquez is back. I think Sensatella is going to pitch. So they're going to get some pitching, which is kind of hard to do over there. But I don't know. Maybe we get a bounce back from Nolan Jones. Maybe Britton Doyle puts up another Gold Glove season. I want to hope for them. I want to believe in Rocktober. So I'm going to keep it alive and over 58 wins.
All right. April, did you say under?
Under. Like I appreciate the Gold Gloves and all that from last. We don't need to stay long on that. You can go next. You can go ahead.
Right. We don't need to. Oh, geez. I'm trying to think though. All right. So the Rockies in 2024 were the worst team in the National League. It is hard for me to imagine that they will be worse.
Yeah.
The Rockies, sans the White Sox, were the worst team in baseball. So I've got to believe there's just a lot of, you're just unlucky at that point, right?
Yeah.
Mark it down, April. The Rockies go over.
Okay.
Going over, baby. Rocktober.
Right, so we're coming up against a little bit past the hour already. We only did one division. I do want to do one more division. We got to do a little bit. Look, we're not going to get through all of the National League.
Yeah,
but there's so much talk about the NL Central, and I know I want to get through it. I want to do that one.
Okay.
But we got to be faster. We got to be faster. We'll work on it. We'll come back if we need to capitalize on NL Central, but I definitely want to do it. I'm going to start with the bottom and go to the top because I love this division. I love this division. And so
Same.
let's start with the Pittsburgh Pirates. In 2024, the Pirates won 76 games. There were 76 wins, 86 losses. They finished the bottom of the division, 17 games back. Vegas says that they will get to 77.5. So they are basically predicting exactly the same, no movement for the Pirates. Malik, what say you?
I would say that that's pretty accurate because of who they signed. They seem like to be like kind of unnecessary placeholders, not to disrespect the players they signed. Not Tommy Pham.
Right.
I'm not going to say Tommy Pham was that. I'm talking about Adam Frazier. No disrespect, but Nick York could be playing second base starting opening day. You got players like Nick Gonzalez. You got players that really could be using some of this playing time, and I feel like they could have capitalized on that a little bit more. So I think they're going to just like even out with that win total. So I'm just going to say it's the same. Yeah, 77.
April?
I had the same, but I actually, you know what? I'm gonna say over. I have them at 80. I don't have them winning more than 80 games. That is where my
But you're over 77.5, so you're over 78, but
yeah.
not over 80. This is very this is very sports booky of you, April. I like it.
I do bet, but
This is
don't.
handicap. This is handicap
I don't know if I
April.
can say that, but yeah.
This is
80.
handicap April. Hey, look, man, I'm gonna go with the Paul Skeens effect.
Oh yeah.
So I think Paul Skeens is getting they're basically saying they're gonna get the exact same record as last year. They didn't have a full season of Skeens, right? I think they're gonna get a full season of Skeens. So I'm going over. Over. That's it. That's my I am basing this off of the team they had last year and a full season of Paul Skeens.
And O'Neal Cruz is moving to center field, right?
Yes. Yeah, which is better there.
Over.
Yep. Which might throw up some of that strength in the middle. So shout out to the Pirates. My guy Pilo, Josh Palacio, Andrew McCutcheon's there. Obviously, keep Ryan Hayes. So I'm gonna go over. I believe in you, boys. Make me proud. All right. Cincinnati. This is a fun fact, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fun fact. The Cincinnati Reds are the most bet on team right now to go over their total number. Their total number is 78.5.
How are they going?
The Reds last season finished the season with 77. So again, this is very tight. Vegas is not predicting much movement, but the fans have predicted the Reds to be the team more likely than any other team in Major League Baseball to do better than last year, to pick up those wins. April, you're nodding your head. Do you agree with the fans that the Reds are going to be better than last season and better than 78.5 wins?
I already wrote my over under this because I've been excited about probably one of my favorite teams, our most exciting teams to be excited about for the 2025 season. Terry Francona did not come out of retirement for just because. There's a reason. There's something that he saw in this team, something that he believed that he can build, something that he believed that he can grow. I believe that we are going to see more depth. We are going to see more passion and growth from players like Ellie De La Cruz. He's already exciting, but with a manager like him, I think that we can just expect more from the Reds.
So over, April, you're with the fans. Malik, where are you?
I'm over on the Reds, especially because they got Batman and Robin up the middle with Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain. This is going to be such a fun team to watch. That offensive ballpark. You got some of their players like Spencer Steer, who's a little injured right now, but he'll be coming back. And you also have a really motivated Austin Hayes, a player that you know a lot about, Cheats, who they got picked up for 1 year. So I think either he's going to be somewhat of a leadership presence there for some of the young players, but he also can be a leverage trade piece if he does really well with the bat in that environment. And I'm really thinking that they're going to win over that, so I'm taking over on the Reds.
Hey, look, I'm high on the Reds too. We're all on the Reds. The fans are on the Reds. Again, that's a bad sign in Vegas when everybody's picking something to happen. But I'm picking something to happen. And two guys that we mentioned earlier, Hunter Green. He's already named the opening day starter. I think he has an all-star type season. And one guy that I obviously personally connected to in the sense of a person we root for on the mixtape all the time, we talk about it a lot, is Will Benson.
Yes.
I think Will Benson has to have a breakout year. I think
Yes.
that he's working on doing everything he can to be that guy in the outfield. So I'm high on Will Benson. Obviously, I'm high on Ellie De La Cruz. How can you not be? How can get Hunter Green is there as well. I'm high on these guys, and the guys that stepped up. Remember, we had a run last year where Reese Hines was the talk of a week and a half, 2 weeks.
That guy was a dog.
Yeah, I'm definitely over on the Reds, like the fans, which obviously is a surefire way to lose money. But I'm going with over with the Reds as well. So right now, I'm over with the Pirates. I'm over with the Reds. We got, again, something has to give in this NL Central. Let's talk about the next one on the list. The 83 win, 79 loss, 10 games back Chicago Cubs. Vegas is predicting the Cubs to finish at 85.5 wins. The Cubs were at 83 wins last season. So they bumped it up for 2 games. But we talked about the big additions that the Cubs made. And so do we think the Cubs are going to be better or worse than 85.5? Something has to give in this NL Central. Malik, is it the Cubs that are giving?
Yes, they're getting over. They're getting over 85 wins, really, just because it's Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker, if he was not injured last year, he would be competing with Judge for the AL MVP. Just with his bat, he was going at a pace that was like unheard of. And I know that he's going to a different hitting environment. I know it's a new team. I know it's a contract year, a lot of pressure. But I think with his addition alone really kind of put them over the top. They also got a new closure from us. Seems like the Cubs and the Astros are having a little dinner party. So I think that they're going to be over 85.5 wins.
April?
I too have them at over. I was excited about the Kyle Tucker movement. Y'all know he's one of my faves. But my only concern with him moving is Chicago and that cold environment. I'm wondering if he's going to have a slower start with how cold it is out there versus, the thing being closed out here. But I think that the Cubs were trending upward last year. And I think that I'm not saying that they're going to be 95 or anything, but they're definitely going to be about, 87, 88, maybe hit 90. But yes, I have them over.
Something has to give. Something has to give in this division. And I mean, obviously again, it could be very similar to last year. It could be. They were 10 games back. There's room there. But I just feel like something has to give in baseball. And if certain teams are going to be better, certain teams are going to have to be worse.
True.
Now, we may be coming up next on one of those worst teams when we talk about the Cardinals. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Or the Brewers. But everybody can't be better. And we're right now thinking the Pirates are going to be better. The Reds are going to be better. Both of you think the Cubs are going to be better. Something has to give. I'm going to say the Cubs go under. I'm going to say the pitching doesn't hold up, right? And, I'm just going to say that they take a little bit of stumble out of the blocks. I do like Justin Turner. I think he's a professional hitter.
Yes,
I like how do you not like Kyle Tucker? But that pitching scares me. I'm ready for a breakout year from Armstrong, right? Everybody's talking about PCA. But he still has to hit. He hasn't proven that he can hit consistently at the major league level yet. So we'll see where that is. I'm rooting for him. But something has to give. I'm saying the Cubs are one of the situations in the NL Central that's going to give. So mark it down. I could be an idiot. I'm saying under.
Well, I mean, Cheats, we were saying that the Reds would be over 78. So do you think that the Reds will play better than the Cubs this year?
Yes.
Cool. I don't want to get into my prediction. Whoa.
Yeah, not yet. I was trying to landlock you there.
You got a prediction show. I'm just saying that I think the Reds are going to be better than last year record-wise and better than Vegas says. I'm saying that I think the Cubs are going to be slightly worse. And we will do the predictions later. Not trying to say who's gonna win all
I was
this.
gonna say
There's a lot of room. There's a lot of room. Let's move along there. The Cardinals wind up finishing with the same record as the Cubs, right? 83 and
Yes.
69. They're 10 games back. The Cardinals, according to Vegas, 77.5. So the Cardinals Vegas thinks the Cardinals are going to be the team that gives.
Mhm.
We were trying to figure out who's going to give in this division.
Yep.
I say the Cubs are going to give a little bit. Vegas says the Cardinals are going to give a little bit because they lowered their win total number. Do we think the Cardinals are in a position to go over what Vegas thinks? What is that? 77.5.
No. They are the team that is going to be going under this year. And then I'm just trying to figure out what they're going to do with Nolan Arenado. Like they've been trying to deal
They've
with
been trying. Nobody's taking them.
Right. So they got rid of the other guy that went to the Dodgers. Yeah, my mind is blank right now. That we got last year from the Dodgers. I don't know. I just feel like they've sold quite a few pieces. I don't have faith in the Cardinals. They're not the Cardinals of like the 2010s and so forth. I think that everybody else has gotten better and they haven't. And I don't see them doing better than any of the teams that we've already talked about. Maybe the Pirates, but I don't have enough faith in them to think that.
That's a good point. I'm gonna say I'm gonna take under, but not by drastically by that much. And the reason being is it's gonna be a rebuilding year. They're not gonna call it that. I mean, they still have Wilson Contreras, and they still have some good players like Nolan Arenado for the time being. But I think it's gonna be a good year for them to develop the players that they have, like Mason Wynn. And Jordan Walker can finally get the at-bats that I think deserves. You also have Victor Scott II in center field, who's been, I think, Cheech, you've been seeing him play a little bit in spring training. So I think it's going to be one of those years for them.
I'm also going to go under on the Cards, only not because of the players you mentioned, but somebody has to pitch. We have to pitch. Again, baseball is a simple game when you talk about you got to be able to pitch, right? You've got to have those arms that'll be able to keep you in the game. And I'm not 100% sure right now that the Cardinals or the Cubs have the arms to keep them in the game at a high level like this. And obviously we know 162 games is a grind. There's injuries that come about. I am excited to see Victor Scott. I am excited to see Mason Wynn. I am excited to see Jordan Walker. But then none of them pitch. None of them pitch. So I'm worried about the Cardinals pitching staff. I really am. And I think they are going to go under. Last one for the night and last one in the division. So just for the recap, we did the NL West. We're going to finish up right now with the NL Central before we call it a day. Last year, the runaway winners of the NL Central, 93 wins, 69 losses, Milwaukee Brewers. They lost their coach, and they just keep on ticking. They just keep on doing what they do in Milwaukee. They keep on winning. And the Brewers are listed at 83.5 in Vegas, which is 10 games lower than what they did last season. So Vegas thinks a significant ground will be given by the Brewers and made up by the rest of the field, if you will. But the Brewers are the ones that took the biggest hit in regards to a 10-game drop. Do we think the Milwaukee Brewers will be better or worse than 83.5 wins?
I have
Evan Williams.
I have them about the same. I don't think they're definitely going to be better. I had them dropping. So I'm going to put an S for about the same at about 83 games. I did not see them winning no 93 games. I know that for sure. They were not winning 93 games. And I'm not going to get my little prediction yet. I'm going to wait for this. But yeah, so I'm going to just put S for same.
Okay. I'm going to take over for the Brewers because every time we act like the Brewers are not going to win their division, every time we think they don't have enough pitching, every time we don't think they have enough defense, which they usually have, every time we think they can't hit, they find a way to win the division, and they find a way to exceed our expectations. Now, the playoffs is another story.
Right.
But we know that they have the inside shot to win. Even though, like we said, that their coach went to the Cubs. I
Didn't matter. They
feel like
still
it
won the
didn't
game
matter.
with
Pat
10.
Murphy was basically his coach when he was in college. So it's pretty much kind of a clone situation here. So I think that the Brewers are going to do either they might win about 90 wins. So I'm going to give them over on that number because 83, I feel like it's just kind of just the same, carrot that just kind of gets us in trouble every year when we bet against them.
I'm with you, Malik. I'm with you. I think it's insulting to drop these guys by
Me
10
too.
games. I just do. Like, I know that. Look, I know the sports books are smarter than I am. I know they're doing all the analysts. They're pairing out all the schedules. But for the last 2 years, all the Brewers do is just win games. They figure out how to win games, and I think they're going to figure out how to win at least more than what Vegas is saying they're going to win. I don't think there's going to be that significant of a drop because 10 games is a significant drop.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, again, this is a Brewers team that won 93 games in 24. Brewers that made the playoffs won 92 games in 23. I believe that they're just going to, they may not be as good as 93 and 92 wins, but they're not going down to 85. Right? In my mind.
They're not going down that far.
So I think the Brewers would be the most bet on over the Reds as an over team. So mark it down. I've got the Brewers.
I marked it. Y'all wrong, but I marked it.
I've got the Brewers.
Let me tell y'all.
85 games.
Let me tell y'all. Because y'all also have to remember, other teams got better. They did not get better. I know they tend to find ways to be able to win. But the issue this year is going to be matching up against those teams. And I feel like those teams will match up better one-on-one than they did in previous years. So we will revisit because I got the book.
We will revisit. Hopefully we'll add Lobo to the mix. We really, that was a longer podcast for us tonight. I really appreciate everyone hanging in there with us. It's a lot of fun. We will continue, but somebody asked in the chat, is this the prediction show? No, it's actually, the prediction show is actually different. We will predict who wins the divisions, who goes to the playoffs, who wins the World Series. That will be closer to opening day. It has to happen before opening day, but it's closer to opening day. This is just over-unders. We'll do 2 more divisions next week. Mm-hmm. We will be back on Thursday. Malik, you are featured on In the Booth this week. In the Booth featured. Make sure everybody goes and downloads In the Booth with hosted by Flobo Boys featuring Malik this week. 10th inning talk. We talked about it offline today. I'm trying to move the timeline up, Malik. I'm trying to move up April's podcast to make it hit for April.
That'd be beautiful.
We're trying to make it hit right when opening day. Yeah, we're trying to make it hit for when opening that March 31st week. But we don't look. We'll get it done.
It's coming on.
Yeah, a lot going on. Obviously, with the mixtape, we want to give a final thanks to all of our sponsors: Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, Number Game Scorecards, and Minority Prospects. Thank you all for participating in the Instagram chat. We're also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. Any last words, guys? I know we ran over. Last words.
I'm gonna say shout out to you, like covering Cam Smith and just being able to see him in person. I don't think a lot of people bet on him, and I think a lot of people passed up on him in the draft. And you just being able to go see him in person kind of confirms what we know. This guy's going to be probably a top 10 prospect before the end of this year.
This guy right here, Cam Smith, is going to be a stud.
That's a big dog.
He's going to be a stud.
Listen, I wanted to change my my video that I sent in after. I was like, darn it, I forgot about him. Which I know also. At the same time, it's really hard for me to try to give Astros credit. So I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do that or if I was just going to stick with my other folks. Because I knew one of y'all were going to do it anyway. So. Yeah,
that's awesome. I got to make sure we get those posted up this week. I really appreciate all of the effort, and there'll be just more and more coming out of the mixtape as we get geared up for opening day and regular season. We'll be back on Thursday live on Instagram. So if you're following this, Instagram live on Thursday at 8 p.m., I believe, with Lewis Brinson, myself, and a special guest. We always have a special guest. So, ladies and gentlemen,